Hello, welcome to Book Journey. Today, I'm going to interpret a book for you. The title is a bit long. It's called Drama Free: A Guide to Managing Unhealthy Family Relationships. Yes, this is a book about how to deal with family relationships. I believe many people will resonate with the title of this book. We all long for the warmth of home and rush back during holidays, but once we return, we often face various issues and inevitably have conflicts with our relatives. During the Spring Festival holiday in 2024, a Weibo topic called "Fighting During the New Year" even made it to the trending list. By now, as you listen to this book, you should have ended the Spring Festival holiday, left your hometown, and returned to the city where you work. But I think this book can still help you, because maintaining relationships with family members is not only a task we need to do when we return home for the holidays, but also a subject we need to deal with in our ordinary days. The author of this book is Nedra Glover Tawwab. She is a New York Times best-selling author and a licensed therapist, a relationship expert with 16 years of experience in relationship therapy. Book Journey has previously interpreted one of her books published in 2022, Boundaries. In that book, the author discussed the importance of setting boundaries in relationships. As a therapist, the author found that during therapy sessions, the most frequently discussed topic with clients is family relationships. During the therapy process, the author often asks clients, "Who was the first person to make you feel this way?" And the answers usually trace back to the family of origin. The way people interact with their family of origin is often how they interact with the world. Of course, there is no such thing as a perfect family of origin. Every family has its own set of problems. For many people, the most complex relationships are family relationships, and the relationships they most want to improve are with certain family members. Because the other party is our relative, even if the wounds are deep, we still have expectations for them. The author says that this book is not about blaming all the dissatisfaction in your life on your family of origin. It is a tool book that can help you master the necessary skills to better manage your relationships with family members. Over the years, we have also seen many books discussing the family of origin. I previously interpreted a book on family of origin trauma called It's Okay Not to Forgive, which mainly talks about why the family of origin affects a person and how trauma is formed. The uniqueness of this book is that it is a tool book. The author focuses more on how to do it and provides very specific suggestions. This book answers two fundamental questions. First, when there are problems in your family, how do you maintain good relationships with your relatives? Second, when you no longer want to maintain relationships with your family, how do you cut off contact? Today, we will focus on the first question. In today's interpretation, we will first briefly discuss the general problems that exist in families. In the author's words, such families are called dysfunctional families. Next, we will talk about what to do, how to maintain, change, and heal relationships with family members. Finally, we will focus on more specific issues and discuss how to deal with relationships with certain specific family members, such as parents. Alright, let's dive into the book. There are many types of problems in dysfunctional families, including emotional and physical abuse, boundary violations, and family members with addiction issues, etc. Today, we will focus on some of the more common problems, namely boundary issues, emotional neglect, and intergenerational trauma. Let's start with boundary issues. The author tells a story in the book about a pair of twin sisters. The older sister was born only 5 minutes earlier than her twin, and she has been responsible for taking care of her younger sister since childhood, being a very responsible older sister. Now the twin sisters are 32 years old. Although the younger sister occasionally complains that her older sister is too controlling, the two still talk on the phone and send messages every day. Now the younger sister is getting married, but her fiancé complains that he feels like he always comes second to her older sister. No matter what decision she makes, the younger sister always consults her older sister first. As she gets engaged to her fiancé, the frequency of communication between the younger sister and her older sister decreases. The older sister senses this change, questions why the younger sister is distancing herself, and even accuses the fiancé of disrupting their sisterly relationship. The essence of the problem between these sisters is the failure to set proper boundaries with each other. In fact, this situation is quite common in life. It can happen between siblings or between parents and children, where one party wants to overly involve and control the other's life, losing boundaries. For example, a child wants to go to college away from home instead of choosing a local university, but the whole family objects. Or a mother takes over the planning of her daughter's engagement ceremony without considering the daughter's wishes and demands. These are examples of relationships losing boundaries. The author uses the term enmeshment to describe this situation. When we were young, the boundaries between us and our family members were generally not very clear. Parents were responsible for our growth, so they would intervene in every aspect of our lives, studies, and interpersonal relationships. We were closely connected with our family members. But as we grow older, we become more and more independent, with our own lives and social circles, and we increasingly need our own space. However, family members may not necessarily adapt to this change. A family is a cultural system, and any attempt to create new traditions or change roles is seen as an attack on this system and may face some resistance. In the case of the older sister mentioned above, she sees the younger sister's desire for an independent identity as a threat to their sisterly relationship. The older sister has always controlled the relationship, but the younger sister craves more autonomy, so the older sister feels like she is losing power. When we challenge the cultural system of the family, we may face opposition. The other party may say, "Everything was fine before, but your suggestions have disrupted our lives, or why have you changed? You are not the same as when you were a child." But in fact, people are constantly growing, and relationships also need to evolve accordingly. Therefore, change is an inevitable process in maintaining relationships. The other party may also humiliate you and attack your character. In a toxic family, humiliation is a manipulative tactic. If a child does not follow the rules set by the parents, some parents may resort to attacking the child's character, calling the child bad or inadequate. Humiliation creates a sense of guilt, and guilt leads to compliance. So humiliation is actually a form of control. In addition to opposition and humiliation, the other party may also react by ignoring you, not paying attention, and going about their own business. When the other party shows these reactions, you are likely to feel guilty. Here, the author gives us several reminders. First, you need to understand that even if you are dissatisfied with a family member's behavior, you can still love them. Many relationships are not black and white. If you can open your heart and accept the complexity of human emotions, you will be able to more easily accept that both positive and negative aspects can coexist in a relationship. Second, it is not a problem to maintain boundaries with family members. Boundaries are a very important element for a healthy relationship, including intimate relationships. Whether it is a colleague, friend, or family member, if the other party can affect your mental health, we need to maintain boundaries and adjust our expectations. Third, having your own opinions does not mean being rude. The author once conducted a survey on a social platform, asking people what they had been labeled as rude for. The answers were varied, such as, "I said I didn't want to ride in a car to the mall with someone, and I was called rude," or "Someone asked me for money, and I refused," or "My friend asked for my opinion, and I told the truth." Sometimes, what is called rude is actually just telling the truth, setting boundaries, and refusing someone's request. It is about having your own opinions and different ideas, and it should not be labeled as rude. Deliberate destructive behavior is what should be called rude. Finally, others may disagree with your views, but they cannot insist that it is your fault. You do not have to prove that you are right. It is certainly painful to be misunderstood, but we also need to accept the fact that some people simply cannot understand you. In addition to enmeshment, there is another type of boundary issue called codependency, which is characterized by an excessive desire to take responsibility for the other person. In a healthy adult relationship, each person is only responsible for themselves and does not need to be responsible for others. However, in a codependent relationship, one party feels that they need to be responsible for the other person's life and emotions, that they have the right to interfere in the other person's life and lifestyle. There are many common examples of codependency. For example, if your younger brother is unemployed, you feel that he needs your help, so you pay his rent without him even asking. Cleaning up other people's messes, neglecting yourself to take care of others. Getting angry if the other person does not change. Helping others when there is no obligation to do so, and being more enthusiastic about solving other people's problems than the person themselves. Whether you are the one helping others or the one receiving help, you are in a codependent relationship. Someone once asked the author, "What should I do if I always think of my younger siblings first in everything? Although I feel resentful, I am used to taking care of others. Now that my younger siblings have grown up, do I still have to continue to be their parent?" Perhaps you had to step up and play the role of a caregiver when you were young, but is this kind of care still necessary after your younger siblings have grown up? Instead of arranging everything for others, teaching them how to take care of themselves can fundamentally solve the problem. Of course, it cannot be denied that some people do not want to take care of themselves and prefer to depend on others. However, helping others without boundaries and neglecting your own life will bring us stress. Therefore, you need to set boundaries and manage your expectations of others. You can help others, but on the condition that you do not wrong yourself. Independence and autonomy are key elements of a healthy relationship, and one of the best ways to support others is to allow them to be themselves. After discussing boundary issues, let's move on to the second common problem, emotional neglect. Emotional neglect is the failure to receive sufficient emotional nourishment, care, and attention. For the issue of emotional neglect, caregivers are often unintentional, but it can have a profound impact on children. Compared with other childhood traumas, emotional neglect is invisible, and many people are silently suffering from the pain of being neglected. There are several manifestations of parental emotional neglect. First, when children need them, the parents are not there. Children need guidance from adults. Otherwise, they can only grope on their own and seek help from peers who also lack relevant experience. For example, a client named Carrie had no idea what to do when she got her first period. Her mother just gave her a few sanitary pads without explaining anything or asking about Carrie's feelings. This is actually a form of emotional neglect. In addition, some parents do not allow their children to show vulnerability. It is normal for children to express emotions. If they feel uneasy, they will cry and scream. This is not bad behavior, but a way to express emotions. Parents should help children learn to accept and deal with their emotions instead of suppressing them for the comfort of others. Parents can guide children to express their emotions in a calmer way and provide them with a safe space to vent freely. Another manifestation of emotional neglect is a lack of interest in understanding the child or insufficient interest. All children hope to be seen, valued, and understood by their parents. When this need is not met, the child will feel hurt. Some parents do not know what grade their child is in, what the child likes, or even how old the child is. If parents never express emotions to their children, then the children will have no way to learn how to express emotions and may even feel guilty for expressing emotions. The last common issue we need to discuss is intergenerational trauma, which is the transmission of problems and traumas from one generation to the next. Several generations of family members may experience the same issues, repeating the cycle over and over again. Research has found that the stress hormone levels in the offspring of Holocaust survivors are higher than those of the general population. If trauma is not addressed, its ripple effect will affect generation after generation. Unhealthy behaviors and maladaptive coping mechanisms can be passed down through the generations. Children of parents who have experienced severe childhood trauma are also more likely to have behavioral problems. For example, in some families, alcoholism has been a problem for several generations, including fathers, uncles, and grandfathers. You may also observe in your own life that some of your cousins repeat the unhealthy family patterns of their elders, such as using insulting language to scold children, gossiping behind others' backs, or being unable to express emotions. This is because parents unconsciously repeat the parenting styles of their own parents. One client once told the author that when she made spaghetti sauce, she would add sugar to it, but she didn't know why. She was just imitating her mother's way of doing it, and her mother had learned it from her grandmother. This example also shows that unless we actively question whether our behaviors are reasonable, we will continue with our usual patterns. There is a saying, "You can't give what you don't have." Overcoming intergenerational family patterns is not easy, but with a willingness to learn and gain insight, we can find appropriate methods and adopt new patterns. Alright, that concludes our discussion on some common issues in dysfunctional families. Next, we need to talk about how to address these issues. However, before we do that, we need to muster up the courage. Usually, we are reluctant to talk about family problems. Discussing issues within our family can make us feel embarrassed and ashamed. Moreover, our innate desire for a sense of belonging makes us worry that breaking old family patterns will lead to more problems in our relationships with family members. Even if some family members' behaviors are clearly wrong, they may take your pointing out the problem as an offense, deny it outright, or even get angry. It takes courage to confront unhealthy family relationships, so many people choose to remain silent. However, avoidance only slows down the healing of these unhealthy patterns. If you pretend that something never happened, how can you achieve healing? By avoiding the problem, harmful behaviors will continue to exist. Some people might say, blood is thicker than water. Only family members will unconditionally support you, no one loves you more than your family, or, family matters should never be discussed outside the home. However, these statements are designed to make you feel guilty and ashamed, to make you accept harmful beliefs and unhealthy relationships. These statements do not take into account the psychological issues that unhealthy family relationships can cause and how they can hinder your healthy growth. Just because we are family, does it mean we have to endure it unconditionally? Whoever tells you to do so is not prioritizing your needs, but rather maintaining a superficial harmony. In the section on solutions, the author repeatedly emphasizes one point: you cannot change others. When our relationships encounter problems, the most common solution we think of is to change the other person, but that is very difficult. We can only change our own perceptions, behaviors, and expectations, and that is already enough to improve a relationship. As we mentioned earlier, there are two paths to dealing with complex family relationships. The first path is to learn to manage relationships that will not change, and the second path is to end relationships that will not change. Let's start with the first path: how to get along with people who are unwilling to change. Although the phrase unwilling to change might sound absolute, I think we all know how difficult it is to change the minds and concepts of parents or other family members. Before they had children, parents were just ordinary people, and the process of raising children does not necessarily make them more responsible, wiser, more tolerant, or more peaceful. We expect parents to transcend themselves and take care of us, but they are still who they are. People are not Lego bricks. You cannot build them into the way you want them to be. If others cannot change, then we can only change our own ways of dealing with them. What can we actively change about ourselves? You can change your perception of others' abilities, change your expectations, and change your communication and expression. It is normal to have expectations of family members, but these expectations should match the person themselves, not the role they play in your life. If your family members inherently lack the ability to manage finances, they will not suddenly become good at financial management after having children. Becoming a parent does not automatically grant them this skill. So, the first thing we can change is our perception of others' abilities and our own expectations, which in turn can change our attitude towards them. In addition, you can try to create some distance. If being with someone drains you, makes you feel frustrated, irritable, and unable to be yourself, then it is not beneficial to maintain such a relationship. Creating distance is a strategy. You can start with a small step, such as reducing contact with the person. Creating distance does not mean ignoring them. It means steering the conversation away from topics you dislike and allowing the person to participate only in specific aspects of your life. If you can create some distance, as long as the other party respects your boundaries, you can maintain the relationship while having your own space. You cannot choose your family, but you can decide who and how often they appear in your life. All adult relationships are a choice, and no one can force you to stay in an unhealthy relationship. Alright, we have talked about the first path, how to manage relationships that will not change. Now let's move on to the second path, how to end relationships. In most cases, we are willing to tolerate some problematic family relationships. However, if a relationship involves abuse, causes serious harm, and cannot be changed, then perhaps ending the relationship is a better choice. You do not have to endure abuse from someone just because you are related by blood. No one is obligated to maintain contact with a toxic person. Around the holidays every year, people tell the author that they feel anxious and depressed when they have to celebrate with certain family members. For example, some people have to dine with those who have hurt them, some are ridiculed and mocked while visiting relatives and friends, and some have to face their parents' favoritism. When facing these issues, because they are family and it is a holiday, most people can only endure in silence, but the harm is real. As a therapist, the author has also seen people who suffer from serious psychological illnesses such as depression and anxiety due to maintaining unhealthy relationships with family members. We should have higher, not lower, expectations for family relationships. Because family relationships are important and long-lasting, they should be the healthiest relationships we have. After reducing or cutting off contact with some family members, you will still inevitably encounter them in life. For example, you may no longer interact with your aunt, but you may still run into her at your grandmother's birthday party. At that time, you can greet her naturally, maintain social distance, and remind other family members not to force you to interact. If a family member insists that you communicate with the person, you can say, "I feel that our relationship is very unhealthy, and I do not want to interact with her," or, "Please do not force me to talk to someone who has hurt me." You also have the right to refuse to attend events where the person will be present, because if the trauma is deep, re-exposure to someone who has hurt you is likely to cause a shock. We just mentioned that all adult relationships are a choice, which means we can seek support outside the family and choose some new family members. It is important to understand that the title we give to someone does not mean that they will play the role that the title implies. Some parents do not raise their children well, and some siblings are not close. Friends may be more trustworthy than siblings. In relationships, we all need to take the time to figure out what kind of relationships are valuable and what kind are just obligations. Family members are important, but the family you choose is also indispensable. Your close friends, neighbors, elders, or teachers can all become your new family members. In addition to seeking support from others, we also need to learn to support ourselves. We need to get to know ourselves, understand our needs, desires, and preferences. Reflective journaling, psychological self-help exercises, therapy, and meaningful conversations can all help us gain a deeper understanding of ourselves. Do not neglect yourself. Take a hot bath, have regular medical checkups, and take good care of yourself. We cannot do anything about others neglecting us, but at least we can value ourselves. Pay attention to your own needs. If you are always caring for others, it will be difficult to let go of the belief that caring for others is more important than caring for yourself. For you, your needs are the most important. Be the person you need. If you cannot find someone who can meet your expectations, you can take on that role yourself. Just now, we talked about how to heal ourselves and change our relationships with family members. Next, let's go a step further and discuss how to deal with relationships with certain specific family members. In the book, the author talks about how to handle relationships with parents, siblings, children, extended family, in-laws, and blended families. Time is limited, so let's focus on the most important relationship, parents and children. Let's start with how to deal with the relationship with your parents. The author suggests that if there are problems in your relationship with your parents, you can bravely speak up and tell them what you think about their parenting style. First, let them know that you value your relationship with them, and then tell them what your needs are. For example, I love you very much, but there is something important I want to tell you. When you are upset, you lose your temper with me, and it has been like this since I was a child. Next time you lose your temper, I will remind you to be mindful, and we can communicate when you calm down. If you cannot say it out loud, you can also write a letter to your parents. Writing a letter can help you release your emotions without having to confront your parents face to face. In the letter, you should clarify the issue, the impact it has had on you, your feelings, and what you think should be done next. Focus on the key issues and do not expect to solve all problems at once. Timely communication when problems arise is the golden rule of interpersonal communication. Start the dialogue as soon as possible and do not delay for too long, otherwise you will only plunge yourself into continuous suffering. You also need to set clear boundaries with your parents. For example, clearly tell them, "Mom, you have to let me know in advance before you come to my house, or stop making jokes about my weight. I do not find it funny at all." If your parents are not very emotionally mature to begin with, we can first assess their emotional age and then set our expectations accordingly, because being a parent does not automatically make a person mature. Do not compare them with other people's parents. Instead, make a vertical comparison between their current behavior and their past behavior. You can point out the problems and repeatedly express your expectations, but do not pay too much attention to their reactions, because that is the part you cannot change. If you are a parent, how should you handle the relationship with your children? Being a parent is probably one of the most difficult things in the world. There are no perfect parents, and every parent knows that no matter how hard you try, your children will still have some dissatisfaction. So, you can regularly initiate conversations with your children, listen to their feelings and perspectives, and ask them, "What do you need now?" Parents should also allow children to bring up past events and not ignore the harm that certain past mistakes have caused to the children. Once your children become adults, you cannot control every aspect of their lives. You need to give them space to become the person they want to be, which is beneficial for the parent-child relationship. The transition from the relationship between an adult and a child to that between two adults is uncomfortable for both parties. Adult children find it hard not to offend their parents, and parents find it hard to find their place. But the purpose of raising children is to help them become independent individuals. During the growth process of children, from adolescence to leaving home for college, and then to starting their own families, at each stage, parents need to gradually give up some control over their children. If parents still control their adult children to the same extent as when they were young, it is a very unhealthy practice. How can parents maintain a healthy relationship with their adult children? First, give them freedom to make their own decisions. Encourage them to come up with their own solutions instead of you telling them the answers. You surely want your children to learn to make beneficial decisions on their own without needing parental guidance. Second, learn to ask your children, "Do you need my opinion?" If you think it is necessary to intervene in some matters, seek their consent first. Third, do not always hold your children to their past behavior. Allow them to change and do not use guilt to force them to be the way you like the most. Fourth, set boundaries for each other. Parents also do not have the right to intrude on their children without limit. Finally, if you want to see some changes, you need to make those changes yourself first. Many parents complain, "My child never calls me." But actually, parents can also take the initiative to call their children. So, if you want to see a change, you can try taking the first step. In summary, adult children are adults first and foremost. To maintain a healthy relationship with adult children, you need to think about how adults interact with each other. Adults respect each other, understand each other, and respect differences. If both parents and children can do this, the relationship between them will be more harmonious. Adult children also need the care and attention of their parents. People do not stop needing love just because they grow up. It is just that the way it is expressed is different. The author says, remember, for adult children, what you need to do is support them, not manage them. Alright, that is the essence of the book I wanted to share with you. Today, we discussed the topic of how to deal with relationships with family members. There is no such thing as a perfect family of origin. We often see those entangled, unhealthy family relationships, such as codependency, emotional neglect, or intergenerational trauma. We cannot change others, but we can change our perceptions of their abilities, our expectations, our attitudes, and the way we respond to them, set boundaries, and build a healthy support system for ourselves. As an adult, you can choose the kind of life and relationships you want. You can accept people as they are, but you do not have to tolerate unhealthy behaviors. You can decide the extent and duration of your interactions with others. You can decide which topics are off limits, and if someone brings up a forbidden topic, you can interrupt or stop it. You can choose not to participate in heated arguments and not to spread gossip. Finally, I would like to end with a quote from the author. If you want to see changes in your home, you need to make those changes yourself.